If you assume that there is no hope, you guarantee that there will be no hope. If you assume that there's an instinct for freedom, that there are opportunities to change things, then there is the possibility that you can contribute to making a better world. This quote was one of the many allusions to Noam Chomsky found in the 2016 film Captain Fantastic, and it sets the stage for the ideals found in the movie. The story follows Father Ben Cash and his 6 children after the suicide of his wife Leslie Cash. The characters must leave their survivalist utopia that the family created in order to attend Leslie's funeral, against her father's wishes because of the blame he places on Ben for her suicide. Along the way, the children must deal with the mourning of their mother and come to grips with a world they know nothing about. Ben must face a society that he despises and live up to the responsibility of single fatherhood. It's only together that they can conquer their world and stay strong as a family. On this week's episode of Geek Squawk, we'll explore this movie and a few other things. So stay tuned and enjoy. Squawk! So, we get this movie that's, it's like a family movie, and at its core, it's about dealing with loss. It's about dealing with growing up in the world. It's even about coming to terms with what you know and don't know about the world. I don't know, when I watched this the first time, I didn't really think anything of it. And the only reason I did watch it is because I was actually scrolling through TikTok and I saw a guy that he did just a brief, the 60-second TikTok format kind of summary or recommendation for this movie. And he goes in, into detail about the guy's kids, the dealing with the loss of his wife, the dealing with almost the loss of his just lifestyle, or the way they had to change everything for his wife's mental illness, and how they thought that they were doing something so wonderful that it really resonated with me for a weird reason, even because I don't have kids. I don't really care to have kids. Right. It touched me for some reason. It's nothing really that I've experienced. It just really touched me on a different level, I guess. I was telling you about it, Mikey, as soon as I saw it, I was like, you got to watch this movie. This is a pretty cool movie. I think that I wouldn't have watched it on my own if I hadn't have seen, it wouldn't have been something I was scrolling through Netflix and saw just the preview or even the title card, because it's a pretty unassuming movie, right? Like, yeah, it's the guy with his kids standing next to their van, Captain Fantastic. It almost sounds like a weird superhero movie, maybe, or like, yeah. With Rainn Wilson, he did that Super movie. It's just called Super. I would have assumed it was something like that, but
right, yeah.
I don't know. What'd you guys think of it?
I thought there was definitely something I wouldn't have watched, like you said. And getting into it, I had a little bit to go off after you described it to me, and I'm like, that sounds interesting. So I started watching it, and the first thing I'm like, I really liked the kind of sense of tribalism the family had, even though they were like, literally living in the woods. They kind of had this whole, like pact mentality to them, which I thought was really cool. Yeah. And, the father, Viggo Mortensen, seemed really
great
harsh
actor,
and
by the way.
Yeah. But he was also loving, but really logical in the same sense, So just the way he kind of dealt with the kids and his way of like, raising them, it seemed a little harsh, but like to him is like he's preparing them for life, and that was kind of cool to see like that, in that sense, because I feel like a lot of people obviously don't live like that anymore, and they don't.
Yeah, you'd think that they're crazy. That seems like an insane people.
And it came off that way a little bit, just like watching it, especially the parts where they were interacting with society. It's like they felt so far removed from it. It was pretty wild. Yeah.
So I'm not really a movie buff, and I really didn't know what to expect. I know you explained it to me, and I was interested in it, but I'm not gonna lie, I forgot like what you said about the movie by the time I watched it, because I waited so long.
Sounds about right.
So I was genuinely thinking it was like a superhero movie or something.
Right,
I had no expectations going into it. But yeah, it was definitely very interesting. I liked how there was kind of some like hypocrisy like going on with like what he was teaching versus like how they were living.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall it was a really good movie, and like you guys said, it was nothing I would have picked out on my own.
Yeah, we're definitely on the spoilers free section of the discussion, but even in the first, like Mike, you were saying about he almost seemed harsh. In the first was it 10-15 minutes almost, when they're rock climbing, and the one boy slips and hurts his hand, he's like, no one's gonna come to save you.
Right.
You are on your own here. You have to get a grip, calm down, and fix it. You know, it's kind of a parable for what his whole mentality or his whole lifestyle was, you know, because they totally reject all capitalism, or, you know, at their core, they're rejecting capitalism.
Yeah, they have a very, the whole dynamic in the family was really intense, like the whole time. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, and I think, and obviously when the movie starts, it's the wife is already out of the picture in the hospital. I would have been really curious to see that their dynamic while she was still there. You know, how much was it different? You know, was it the same? Was, you know, mom's away, so dad's a little bit more strict now? I would be really interested to see that. But I think the fact that we don't have that dynamic at any point, it really sort of just nails home the whole story. It was pretty impressive movie in general. Apparently the director, the part of the reason why he was wanting to make this movie was he sort of lived like that, or he grew up in, what do they call those, what do they call, like, the communes or something like that, right? Isn't that what they're called?
I think so, yeah.
Where people, like, live together. It's like group community living. Yeah. Like
a commune,
Yeah, he lived in or somewhat of a commune. I was watching an interview and he was saying, you know, idyllically, this is how I wished I could be as a father, if I could devote 100% of my time to my children. But I mean, nowadays, could you imagine? I mean, you have a kid. Could you imagine not letting them have technology? I mean, I feel like that would almost be too overwhelming.
Them almost, in a sense. I think, you know, technology is a big part of learning. Even it's kind of making everything so accessible and at reach is really cool. You know, that's part of kind of evolving. Some of it's kind of insane, but
yeah, for sure. I mean, we're so used to the iNanny stage. You see kids nowadays that they wouldn't know what to do almost without a phone. Or, I mean, every little kid I've been around, you got games on your phone type deal.
Right.
Yes. Sort of off topic, but I actually saw the other day a video. It was this girl, she's a teacher, and she was like, how do you do the hand sign for a phone, or pretend to use a phone when you were a kid? And I mean, I'm sure all of us did. You put your pinky out and your thumb out and you hold it to your head. And she was like, listen, I saw the other day something that horrified me. A kid held his hand flat, like as if you were just making a knife hand, and put it against their head like a modern phone. She's like, I felt so old. That right there even. Or another one is, you know, how do you take a picture or pretend to take a picture? You hold your two hands up, and with one finger you like a camera that we grew up with. Yeah. And I think it was the same girl, I can't remember now, but she said that they held two hands up, holding it as if their phone was vertical, and pressed their thumb in the middle of their hands.
Wow.
I just feel personally attacked by that kind of thing, realizing, you know, kind of coming to age with the changing world. And you know, that same anxiety almost, I guess you could call it an anxiety, is even evident in Viggo's character. You know, they go to that diner at the beginning of the movie, or not too far into the movie, and they're like, they have cheeseburgers, and the little kids, what's Coca-Cola? It's like, it's poison water, it'll kill you. Yeah. And then, you know, when they're visiting his sister with the video games and stuff, you know, those kids were shocked. Like, what is all of this stuff?
That dinner scene was probably the most, like, as awkward as the Office dinner scene.
Yes,
like,
I was when you said
most
that.
Awkward thing. Yeah.
It was something else. Although I do, and we'll get into that a little bit more in depth in the second half, I really did like that whole family scene. I mean, I love the character, the actress.
Catherine Han, how do you say that? Yeah, I know you're talking about. She's in like a couple of movies. Yeah,
she's in Parks and Rec too. I love her in that.
I was like, is that the Parks and Rec girl? Yeah.
Yeah. She's in I think Step Brothers.
You know, speaking of the actors, the children in this movie, absolutely fantastic. George McKay, I believe he's a British actor, the oldest son, Bodovan. Yeah, he's British. Annalise Basso, the red-haired daughter, Samantha Isler, Nicholas Hamilton, Cherie Crooks, now these are out of order. But I mean, all the kids, even the youngest ones, the very youngest one.
Was it Nye?
Nye, you're right, yeah. What was really interesting too with the younger actors is they could have come on there and just said their lines, right? But it wouldn't have been believable. The fact that they were able to convince us in the audience that they knew what they were talking about, because I mean, obviously the little kid probably didn't know the Bill of Rights or the exact Bill of Rights, and maybe she does, not to take that away from her, but the fact that they're able to portray that information just honestly is insane.
That was a great scene too.
Yeah. Making the older kids feel silly there.
Just something a little off topic here. I wanted to talk about some something I was looking into lately is gaming subscription services.
Oh, so like a Netflix thing or something?
Yeah. So that's kind of what like EA Play and PlayStation Now and Xbox, Game Pass, all those kind of things. They seem to be really prominent now, and maybe that's because of the whole pandemic thing, being overshadowing everything and making outdoor activities a little more or less accessible, But a lot of companies seem to be going that route to the point that it's like maybe even we'll see exclusives on some of these platforms.
God, I hope not.
Right, and that's where I'm kind of getting at is like how many people would be cool living in a world where it's like a Netflix subscription kind of thing, or like whatever, where you don't really own the game, you're just kind of paying for this, and sometimes they're like on a rotation, so you have like 6 months to play it, and then they swap it out for something new. It's kind of interesting to see how a lot of people are kind of dipping their toes into that, and some of the people at Xbox or Microsoft were like kind of going that route, and they weren't so interested in some of the other stuff that people were asking for.
With that, even I don't know if you've seen this before. I was on Xbox for a long time, but Microsoft is moving away from consoles in general with, like you said, their game subscription services. Yeah. Now they're kind of pushing, and their sort of bigger product is Xbox Game Pass. Yeah. For PC and for
right.
They're soon to do the streaming thing, so you can play games on your phone. I don't know if y'all remember when Netflix was first starting to get digital, because obviously the discs we could get forever.
That's how you know.
Yeah, right. You used to have to. Well, first of all, you had to mail in and say what discs you wanted.
Back in my day,
you check in a catalog and find the things you want to see. When Netflix was first coming out, that was like the answer to cable. Like, we don't want to watch all these channels or pay for these channels. We want one place that we can watch everything. Yeah. And it's just weird how that's kind of cyclical, where it's now I got to have 10 subscriptions to different things just so I can see the movie. I got to have HBO Max to watch the new movies, or Hulu to see the shows, or Amazon Video to watch the comic book stuff. That was almost the reason why Netflix became a thing. And now I'm almost curious if, like, cable packages back in the day, we're going to get this new Zumba digital package where you can have all your favorite streaming services in one, right, like it's almost the Netflix answer to Netflix nowadays.
And a lot of it comes down to me, and for me, and maybe this is because I'm getting older. There's the same thing with music and CDs and stuff back in the days. I like tangible things for the most part, so if it's something I'm really excited about, I kind of want to own, like, physically own it, not like when you hear that you can kind of borrow it, but if you don't, pay me, I'm just gonna take it away, and it's not yours anymore, kind of thing.
Games have been like that forever. I mean, when's the last time we truly owned a video game?
Like a disc,
digital games and things like that. Yeah,
especially PC. Yeah.
Riddle me this, Landry. How many subscription services do y'all pay for in that household?
So my dad, and he was obsessed with like having the biggest like cable package forever. He was like, we have to have every possible channel, and I was like, why are you paying $300 a month for TV? Like, I do not understand this. So I finally convinced him to get rid of cable. I will never forget this. I thought it was such a W. You couldn't tell me anything all day. And then my dad signed up for Netflix, Shudder, Hulu, Amazon. He has Apple. He has I can't even tell you. He spends more in subscriptions now than he does on cable. cable. And I'm like, I don't get it at all. But I do for like Game Pass. Like obviously like I'm a new gamer. Like I just started gaming about a year ago. So it is really beneficial to me because there's no way I could afford how to buy a headset, a controller, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everything. And on top of that, buy all those games. So it is beneficial for me to like have that so I can get the games, but at the same time, like I'm the same as you. Like I do like tangible like things, so I have been buying them. Like the games I do like, I have been buying them, and I still buy the disc too. I go to GameStop.
Maybe that's the thing. The audience they're targeting is casual gamers, as opposed to, you know, people like Darth and I, who pretty much that's where we spend our free time. You know.
Yeah. And I think it's definitely a double-edged sword because a good example, not necessarily a game, I'm an avid watcher of The Office, and I've watched that probably, no exaggeration, at very least 20 times all the way through. And that's like a 7 to 10 hour evolution. But when it left Netflix, I bought the DVDs. I've watched The Office 0 times completely through since I've had the DVDs because I actually find it super inconvenient to change DVDs every hour.
Yeah.
I bought the Psych DVDs and I had the same issue. Like I have not. It took me so long to watch Psych through again after I bought the DVDs.
Well, that's on Amazon Prime now.
Now that's even better.
It's like the old audiobooks. So you'd have to flip the tape over. It's like side B.
It's weird how things go in that cycle. You know, we had the answer to, and for what it's worth, I do think there's services that are worth it. You know, Game Pass has a lot of value. EA Plus or Prime, whatever they want to call it.
I don't know much about the other ones, honestly. Yeah, there's even like an Apple Arcade thing, which I think there is exclusive games on now, which maybe just to bring people in, but
comes down to, it works well when there's one service that has a lot of things. I think we start losing the value when there's 10 services that have 3 things each. Mm-hmm. You know, we could have 30 awesome games, sure, but then we're having to pay for it in 10 separate places at that point.
Right. Yeah.
It's troublesome for sure.
And then you get, you know, companies doing things like, you know, where Google did the Stadia thing, which, like I said, I've had before. I've had a good experience with. But I wonder if there's going to be just a more of that, you know, it's like with NVIDIA, I think even has something like that now.
You can buy. I forgot about that. Yeah. NVIDIA, you can buy games from them now. And they have, I mean, they're actually moving, and they have an OBS software. They have, I think, a social platform even, which don't get me started on everything having a dang social platform.
So that's you know, kind of, and some of those things make playing games that maybe your PC couldn't handle, like especially with the NVIDIA thing, and it's like
with the streaming,
you could stream through a, you know, like a server or something, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but like Landry, like you were saying though, you as a new gamer, I think that the services can be very positive, just because there's probably a lot of things, right, that you've gotten to play that you may not necessarily have even given a shot, right? Like you wouldn't have even $60 for a game, or what is it, $19 or $20 for a Game Pass, that you can try anything almost, or a large selection, right?
And it was like, I think it had a deal as like a new member. It was like $1 or something, like $1 or $5 for a month or two, so I could try those games out for a little bit and see how I used Game Pass. So it wasn't just like, not that that's really a lot to begin with, but they did have like a new member deal as well.
Yeah.
I think that also helps out too, you know, kind of lower income gamers or people that don't like spending their money. I mean, I've probably spent an embarrassing amount of money on video games in my time. But that, you know, let's say you have kids and they want to play some games, get them Game Pass, and then you're getting a bunch of. So it's for sure a double-edged sword there.
Another worry I have with it in general, like these streaming services, is it might be kind of the death of indie games and indie developers for the most part. You know, people with these smaller companies putting out stuff because they can't get it on a lot of these platforms. You know, unless they do it through like Steam or something. You know, which might even have something at some point. You know,
there was actually I want to say a lawsuit or something recently that some indie developers were trying to sue Steam because Steam was sort of preventing them from getting in because of like price management or something. I don't remember specifically what it was, but that is interesting. And I've never been into indie games, and Landry, you probably have almost never even heard of an indie game for the most part. There's a couple on Xbox, but when I moved to PC for gaming, the world of indie games and small developers, I mean, honestly, games are just in general cheaper on PC, but There are some really good games on there. I mean, didn't you play Phasmophobia, Landry?
I didn't. I've heard, like, 'cause I'm not on PC, but I've heard Pinky and you guys talk about it. But when you said indie
that's an indie game.
When you said indie games, I thought of Stardew Valley. And that's why I laughed.
Yeah, no,
I don't know if that counts.
exactly. And so Stardew is a great example of an indie game that just did really well, because that's a single dude developer. And he may have a team with him now, but that was a single person made this game, and he just made a beautiful little gem, a diamond in the rough. Because, I mean, there's AAA games that are just absolutely garbage.
That's Concerned Ape. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Concerned Ape, yeah. And then you find indie games like Phasmophobia, Stardew Valley.
Well, even Among Us, right? And that was kind of. I mean, it's all over the place now. I mean.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was a really small group of people. And I mean, that's not even a new concept for games. Didn't you say there's a Town of Salem or something like that?
Werewolf.
And I mean. Yeah, we had the movie The Thing in like the 70s. That's all that is. It's just The Thing, the movie, basically, that whole concept.
Did you say werewolf, Mikey?
Mm-hmm.
Like the board game? Or is that something else?
There is a board game, yes.
I love the board game. I didn't know it was really popular. So when you said that, I was like, is he talking about the board game? Because that's what it's always reminded me of.
There's even a game, it's something similar where people like kind of sit in a circle and they do... kind of one of those games where everybody tries to guess. I don't remember exactly. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Guess who the werewolf is in the town. It's like a little town. It's kind of like Yep.
I've literally never heard of it, but I mean, it's not surprising at all.
I keep it in my trunk. And I keep One Night Ultimate Werewolf and Settlers of Catan in my trunk in case anybody ever wants to play.
Of course you do.
I stay strapped. I can pull that on deck. Even the 5 to 6 player expansion. So if there's a group, we're good.
That's so funny. That does not surprise me in the slightest. Landry, are you one of those people that has just an ungodly amount of trash in your car at all times?
I just cleaned my car out today, so no.
So before today,
I have no middle ground, so it's either my car is really clean or it's completely I need to take 3 or 4 loads of stuff into my house. There's
I don't want to shoot any shots off, but every female that I've seen, they're always like, oopsie, sorry, I got some stuff in the car. It's
it's a whole crock pot.
Just step on it, it's trash. just step on it.
Yeah.
So to slightly put my wife on blast, she has this addiction for a little thing that you might have heard of called Starbucks coffee.
Oh God, we also have a mountain of those.
There are constantly at least 5 to 6 Starbucks cups, but she drinks the iced coffees a lot. And so then there's maybe an inch of liquid in the bottom of the cup. And those things will sit there until there's an entire ecosystem grown in the bottom of the cup.
You get in the car and something's talking to you. You're like, what is that?
Yeah. If God forbid you got in a wreck, every wound you acquired during that wreck would become infected because of the coffee spooge that would just caress your body.
We've gotten a lot better. Well, I've gotten a lot better about cleaning the Starbucks cups out of the car since I stopped drinking coffee, so it's not my garbage anymore. It's
you have an elitist attitude about it. You're like, yeah, it's not my coffee. Those aren't my coffee cups anymore.
Yeah, so it just kind of leaves me being a little bit those aren't mine, but I'll throw it away.
Not to circle back on The Office, which I'll probably do continuously, but the episode where Andy has to drive Meredith home and he had brought his bicycle and he opens the back of her van to put his bike in and all that trash dumps out. Yeah. It's like, what is this? You're a hoarder. She's like, those are my treasures. Yeah. Don't touch them. Leave them alone.
Every time. No, there was one time me and Ben had just started dating and we went to Starbucks. And it was the awkward, we were still pretty awkward around each other. But we went to pay, or they did the total. But you know how you scan your phone to get your points or whatever. And I just rack my points up. I save them for a rainy day. When I was in college, I used to just save them and use them during finals week. So that way, no matter what, I knew I had enough caffeine, to get me through. And so me and him both ordered a coffee and a pastry. And I scanned it and the cashier or the barista was so excited. She was like, "Oh my god, do you have enough points to cover y'all's entire order?" She's like, "Do you want to use this?" And then me and him were just like, blink, 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 because I don't use my point. And I was like, I was like,
don't touch my points because you know they're mine.
I was like sweating. I was like, you can maybe just get one of the, and I was like, no, I have to. Like, I was like, yeah, it's fine. Just do the whole thing.
If it makes you feel any better.
The new boyfriend.
Yeah.
There's a wing place here, and I went there often enough during the pandemic that I was able to pay for my family's entire meal on just the points alone.
That's troubling.
So I was today years old when I learned that your pets can't process the idea of mistakes or accidents. So when you wake up in the middle of the night and you trip over them, they think that you woke up just to kick them.
That makes so much sense.
Like, what the hell, man?
That makes sense why if my dog's asleep and he's on the bed and I nudge him, he wakes up like, like ready to bite me. And I'm like, whoa, dude. Like all the time. And that makes sense now. Wow.
Funny story about mistakes with dogs. I actually have a picture of this. One time, my dog loves catching. I mean, you met my dog Zelda. Super neurotic workhorse to the core. I can't tell this story without laughing. So I have this stick, and I think I even brought that with me, right? When I came to visit y'all, the green stick to throw the ball. It's like an atlatl for a ball, like a tribal weapon, basically. It's so that you can lob the ball really far. Basically, one time I was playing catch with her, and she runs out before I throw it, and I throw this ball, and it pegs her right in the eye.
No.
She yelps, comes running up, like thinking, I'm assuming, like you said, doesn't register it being a mistake, like thinking she's in trouble or something. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. We go inside, and I have this picture. I'll post this in the Discord. I'll put it on like Twitter or something for those of you that want to see it. Yeah,
we need something for pictures and stuff, and visuals. I think would be good.
We could just post it on the Geek Squawk Twitter, I think. But it's this picture of her eye swole up so big. She just looked pathetic with one swollen eye.
Like a boxer.
She's like looking super sad, and it was swollen for a few days. I felt absolutely terrible.
I'm sure that story's much different on her end.
She's like, we were having fun. It was a great time, and all of a sudden he just smacks me right in the eye.
Oh my gosh. My cats are not like allowed in my room anymore, but when I found that out, I went and let one of them in, and like I was like, you can sleep with me tonight. I felt so bad. I was like, oh my god, because I know, like, because I used to sleep on my bed, and I know that I've kicked them off my bed in the middle of the night or like anything, and they're 15-pound 20-pound cats. Like, they're not easy to kick off the bed. But
she does have very large cats.
Biggins.
One of them has
Big chungus.
One of them has the diabetes, so he's doing a little better, but
need to put them on low-calorie food.
Listen, we're working on it, okay? It's a process. But okay. I was today years old when I learned that if you're on the Kilimanjaro safari at Disney's Animal Kingdom, they're very strict about staying in your seat and staying buckled up and everything. And the reason why is because if you fall into the crocodile pit, the drivers are instructed to quickly drive away, because that's how quick the crocodiles are going to eat you, basically. And it's to prevent the other guests from seeing the carnage.
That's crazy.
It's so other guests don't
They're
see
like, go.
Do they have like a quick reaction team to pull people out, or has no one ever fallen in?
I think that I was kind of looking it up. I think in 2016 a kid fell in and they closed it since then.
Wow.
But I don't have confirmation. But
honestly, they'd probably snatch you before you even touch the water. They're so like quick.
Crocodiles,
honestly.
yeah. We live like in an alligator heavy
Are there
area.
Crocodiles in that?
Yes, and
Do they have actual crocodiles at Disney, or are they alligators?
It was like the crocodile. So it was like the crocodile.
God. Yeah,
pit.
they're hell of aggressive.
Wow. I actually I read this story once. I don't remember where it was, but there was this tribe of people that they would go out to this river to wash wash their clothes or whatever, gather water and stuff. But the crocodiles were so like memorized these people's patterns every day of coming out, going by the water, that they would come out and wait for these people to come out, and they would just snatch them out of the water because they would say like, yeah, they're so intelligent. They're just like, they would figure that out, like this pattern every day that these people had. So I imagine they'd wait for, like, something like that safari thing. They'd probably just like wait for the boat to go by, and they're like, maybe somebody's gonna fall
out. Wasn't there a kid that got snatched at Disney next to the water the last few years or something like that? I remember seeing something.
It was in
or a dog maybe
2016, and it said they shut down after that. I don't know if they've reopened. I do know that the reason that they're so like well, obviously crocodiles are always aggressive. But one of the main...
So got all them teeth and no toothbrush.
One of the main things is that they're fed off of that same bridge. So if somebody falls off of the bridge, that's their feeding bridge.
It's like, oh, that's some lunch
right why would you drive them over the feeding bridge? What?
Oh,
I love the thought of calling it the feeding bridge. Oh, he done fell in the water by the feeding bridge.
They're like, do you feed the crocodiles off of that? They're like, no, that's we call it that because people fall in there a lot.
Oh my God.
I'm sure you have to sign something when you get a job there about falling in there. You're fired before you hit the water.
Your insurance doesn't pay for that.
Yeah.
Just so you know, like if you go near the feeding bridge, that's between you and the crocodiles at that point.
Yeah.
So back to Captain Fantastic, and now we're going to have a little bit of a discussion with spoilers. So if that's not your cup of tea, it's probably now a good time to pause it, go watch it, and then come back to us. Mikey, you had some thoughts on it with spoilers.
Oh. Yeah. So you could definitely see a change in him I'm his daughter falls off the roof, right? Like way later in the movie. That was really interesting to see because he starts to realize he's like, man, maybe I'm kind of being a little rough here, or whatever. Because like and even that part with his oldest son interacting with that girl, and he's like proposes to her and stuff, and and it's like it's really awkward. But it's like, man, this kid really has no idea how to interact with anyone. To
be fair, I don't think the dad knows about that, but yeah, the fact that the audience sees that is definitely that's starting to kind of pile on for sure.
The dinner scene, I really liked the dinner scene. It was super awkward. Even that interaction, you could tell, like with all of them there and the kids and everything, like they just live a different life, a different world. It's real interesting to see that dynamic and stuff, and just how like removed they've been from the kids and stuff have been from the outside world. Whereas like Vigo's character probably had a little more interaction with the outside world.
Yeah, and even Ben Vigo's character, the arrogance almost he has during that whole first half essentially of the movie about it. He's very confident and sure in what he's done and what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he's always kind of preaching his his views and stuff to the children, and anytime they kind of like poke their noses around at other things, he's kind of like has some kind of rebuttal for it or something. And what was that, the part with the little kid, or the youngest, when he was talking to him, when he was giving him all the knives, I forgot what he says to him because the little boy was
how
like,
he wants the Noam Chomsky Day celebration.
Yeah, how it was like dumb.
Yeah,
or whatever.
And he's wanting to do Christmas. Yeah, he was like, why can't we just do Christmas like a normal family?
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I really liked like that whole thing, and I think my favorite scene was kind of jumping around a little bit, but I think my favorite scene was when they actually dig up their mom, right, and they put her in the
so rowdy.
They put her in
Steve.
The bus, and they're all like riding with him, and I'm like, man, this is really morbid. It's like beautiful at the same time, like the way that they're all just like with their mom, and they're all just super happy to be with her and stuff, even though like it was her corpse.
Yeah, that was
cool. Yeah,
pretty morbid from our points of view. First of all, I feel like the legality of burning a body is probably not. I think that's questionable at best, even on a legal standpoint. But
yeah,
the collecting the ashes is pretty impressive, considering I don't think a wood fire would get hot enough. But I mean, obviously, if the movie's story point.
Yeah. That was a really cool scene too. The whole the cremation thing, yeah, that was neat.
Mm-hmm.
Like they all were singing and stuff, and that was the other thing is they're all very musical and obviously they're all really well educated as well. But they were kind of musical and stuff, and that kind of goes back to the tribal thing. Like obviously when we all were in a little more tribal society, hundreds of years ago, there's a lot more music and stuff involved in that too. I think, sitting around telling stories and playing stuff.
How they were reading the books and then slowly go and start getting instruments and start playing, at the beginning.
So one of the first things I noticed was that the dad was obviously preaching against dictatorship and fascism, but then was the dictator of like his own family. I don't like, I know like, I think you both have like used tribal, but in my notes, like I wrote that it was like a cult because like that's how it was definitely like coming across to me, especially when he was talking to them about like being against censorship, but then he was censoring like words like out of their vocabulary.
Right.
That I'm actually surprised you kind of picked up on that too. Because I mean, I watched it 3 times and this ideal kind of came to me.
Other than that, I would say my favorite scene was when he was reflecting after his daughter fell off the roof and he left them, and I think he shaved his face, right, and was just sitting out. I was sad. Obviously, I was like sniffling. I was like, I mean, like it was a lesson he needed to learn, but at the same time, like, did it have to be like this, you know? And then they all just start crawling from the bus. I loved it. Oh my gosh, that was definitely one of my favorite scenes. But other than that, I think you guys both like covered pretty much everything that I was feeling.
Oh, I really like the scene with the cop, you know, walking on the bus, and they all started. Yeah, that was one of my favorites. There's lots of really good scenes in that. The whole movie is just full of really good scenes.
And one thing that I really noticed on my third viewing of the movie for this was, you know, Landry, you kind of touched on this, was the hypocrisy of their hatred of religion and not necessarily the dictatorship, because I don't see it that way, because he was pretty open to as long as they can present their ideas. And I feel like that was more of a challenging way. But the parents, and I can only assume that Leslie, the mother, was also, you know, pretty on par with the way he was, right? Like, we don't know how she was with the family, like I mentioned before, but they wanted the children to be critical thinkers, intelligent, as long as it was falling in line with their ideals. And like you said, the family was essentially a cult. One of the big quotes from the movie is when the son, after presenting Ben, after Bodovan, the oldest son, presents Ben with the stack of letters from colleges, which, by the way, I applied for college again recently, and that was a very, very expensive stack of application fees that he had there. How he said, I don't know anything that I couldn't learn from a book, you know, kind of that Goodwill Hunting type deal. And that, to me, is religion. So we think of like cults and stuff that, you know, Christian cults or any cult really, a lot of the times the only thing they know or accept as truth is what they find in a book, you know, be it from a religious book or what it is. But these, you know, they're just scientific with their things. They like reading philosophy, Noam Chomsky books. And there's a few interesting things that happen in the movie. So at the beginning of the movie, after he tells the children that their mother had died, she'd committed suicide, you know, she finally slit her wrists. He puts it very bluntly. There's a scene when the youngest, which I think her name's Naja or Naya,
Naya.
Something along, Naya. He's holding a book in his hands, and it's I think it's just like a ledger, or like, it's nothing religious or anything, but he puts his arms out to her, and it's like a "come to me, my child" type situation. Looking back on it, and the way that that's just cinematographically, is that a word?
It is.
Whatever.
Now.
Yeah,
The way that's shot seems really intentional. It's like back behind his shoulder, and it's a very religious looking thing. And another really interesting thing is we feel for him and we sympathize with Ben because of the perspective that the story is being told, basically from his perspective. You know, if we had this same movie where it's told from the grandpa's perspective, my daughter ran off with this survivalist nut job into the woods, got more sick because he wouldn't let her go out to receive help, and then she ends up getting to the point where she kills herself. You know, that's a completely different story. And that brings me to the next part that I thought was very intentional. When I first watched it, and they're on Steve, the bus, and he asks her what she's reading, the daughter, I don't remember which daughter it was, one of the older daughters, and she said she's reading Lolita. I thought that was a really weird choice of books, and that's not necessarily like a scholarly book or anything like that. You know, that's not typically something you would find on a reading list. But I want to read this quote because when she explains her thoughts on this is almost the exact perception, or this is almost the story of the movie. She says, because it's written from his perspective, you sort of understand and sympathize with him, which is kind of amazing because he's essentially a child molester. But his love for her is beautiful. But it's all sort of a trick because it's so wrong. You know it. He's old and he basically rapes her. So it makes me feel, and then ... I hated him. And somehow I feel sorry for him at the same time. when I first watched the movie a couple times, I just kind of took that for what it was. Mm-hmm. And obviously without the child molesting, you could replace that portion with child abuse.
Yeah.
It's told from his perspective. Yeah. And even though we know that that's not right, you know, is cool as the idea is of having your children be really good at all these things, they're missing out on social interactions. Mm-hmm. They're getting hurt. It's reckless endangerment, but we still feel sorry for him and we sympathize with him, even though he's being terrible. I mean, essentially terrible to the children and to their lives, which is evident through Bodaven's, you know, desire to go college. And mm-hmm. the only thing Ben sees is the fact that he was being lied to. You know, he's very manipulative in that way. Later on, when Landry, you mentioned about Ben cutting off his beard after he realizes that it's all a mistake. He says at one point, he was like, it was a mistake. It was beautiful, but it was a mistake. This whole lifestyle before he leaves them. He goes then and cuts off his beard. And you know, not to get too in depth with like symbology and stuff, I almost feel like then is when he realizes that it is a cult. You know, they are part of the religion of the Cash family, you know. And I don't know how much of that's intentional or how much of that is intended. Right. But I felt like, because the Lolita quote was awkward and didn't seem like it fit. But then when you look at that, how it parallels basically what's happening. Right.
You know, I think the thing with like the being molested, and that could be you could be spiritually molested. You can be, you know, it doesn't have to be like a physical thing. You know,
absolutely.
Yeah. So I think, I think you might be onto something there. I didn't catch that either. I just thought, like you said, I was like, that's kind of a weird book for their kind of rotation, probably, what the books they read and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, why would the philosophical parents even have picked that book? Really, like, it seems like a strange thing. So it almost feels like it has to be sort of intentional.
Yeah. And then the thing with his beard, you know, I caught that a little bit. Because you see it a lot with people that are kind of having crisis, or like maybe they're having like something really big happen in their life. Generally, they change things by, you know, little small things like cutting their hair, dyeing their hair, shaving a beard that they probably had their whole life. You know, you see that kind of stuff happen, and it's almost like a little bit of a cleansing, you know, of like getting away, shedding some skin that was, you know, but their past, and kind of maybe feeling a little more renewed, even though it's just, you know, hair or something.
A little bit of the lighter side of things. I'd looked up some brief trivia that I found was pretty interesting about the movie, and this is mostly from IMDb. But the director had the kids, so there's the 6 kids that portray the children. He had them all sign contracts that they wouldn't eat sugar or junk food during the duration of filming. And they also didn't allow them, or preferred that they didn't have any kind of electronics while they were working in the acting scene. And this is actually Viggo's second Oscar win, I believe. Where did I see this? I had it written down somewhere.
Oh, was there an Oscar and you won this one?
Believe so. Maybe he was nominated. I don't know if he won. Ironically, so he was either nominated twice or he won twice, and I'm not positive which it is. Both of which he had a full nudity scene in.
Yeah, that was something I had written down in my notes, because it was interesting, because he's a bigger actor, and like, you know, male nudity is not something is very common in a lot of movies, you know. So.
You see some Viggo, Peter.
I feel like it's disrespectful to say I forgot about that. But I did.
I was just kind of like, that's kind of weird, you know, because you don't see that a whole lot, especially with like a bigger actor, you know. Actually, I don't know if he's won. He's been obviously nominated for a few
It was
Oscars.
Either he won or he was nominated, but I think the 2 nominations he had, if that's the case, and I feel like I should definitely look this up, and I'll post a tweet about it when I figure it out. After recording this, we'll post a tweet about it later on.
Yes, his nominee, Captain Fantastic, Green Book nominee, Eastern Promises nominee. So he has 3, looks like 3 nominees.
I absolutely love the, like you were talking about, the funeral scene. Mm-hmm. I love the wife's last will and testament. I am incredibly impressed that the toilet didn't clog from an entire jar of ashes.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. I was like, is that going to cause like plumbing issues? I'm always worried about the like wrong thing.
That rendition they do of Sweet Child was pretty good.
It was really good, yeah.
It was really good. I watched this with my dad, and we were halfway through that, and he was like, "Is that Sweet Child of Mine?" And I was like, you're the old
Yeah.
man. Like, you should have been telling me. Like, what?
Which is interesting because it kind of goes back to Step Brothers again, where they sing "Sweet Child of Mine" in the car.
I literally didn't even make
With that one
I'm
actress.
curious if the director had anything to do with that movie now.
I don't know.
So one person that's quoted a bunch of times in the movie is Noam Chomsky. He's he's an anarchist philosopher, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Matt Ross, the director, said that a member of the team contacted him to clear his quotes for use in the movie.
Yeah.
And Matt was said in an interview at one point, he said the way he responded was indicative of the human being that he is. No lawyers, just please quote me correctly. That's all he wanted to say.
About right.
He didn't worry about, making money or having anything other than that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just a wonderful movie, right? Like it was comedic, it was dramatic, it was heartwarming, it was appalling in parts.
Yeah.
It was everything in between. I was glad y'all were willing to give this a chance and give us some time to talk about it.
For sure, yeah. It probably would open me up to watching more, similar movies, because I get pretty narrow-minded when it comes to films for the most part.
I do too. Typically, I'm like horror movies if I'm watching something.
Horror movies or literally like The Office, or just like I just put like a series on it.
Right,
Like
yeah.
that.
Something for background.
I think we all agree. I mean, this is definitely a really good movie. I would recommend it for other people as well. I'm sure you guys feel the same. And I like seeing Viggo in a film. Like, you don't see him in a whole lot of stuff anymore. And he's always been one of my favorite actors.
He's Aragon, right? Or
Yeah,
Aragorn, whatever in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, and there's just lots of stuff that resonated with me. And and you said even with you, even not having kids, I think that's pretty interesting that there was that. Because at the end of the day, it's like he just wanted to protect his kids, because that's pretty much all he had left, especially after his wife passed away. And that's like, I could feel that for sure.
Yeah.
I agree. I definitely liked the movie. I feel like I know everyone kind of daydreams about their vacation, and I think about just like kind of going out in the woods, like being like unplugged, like just kind of getting closer to nature. So that side of the movie appealed to me, but I also understand that it's not really realistic. So kind of watching it play out like that was realistic long term, I guess I should say, was interesting. Overall, like I would recommend this movie. Like I said, it wasn't something that I would normally like watch, but it was a good movie. There was definitely like a lot of like thought and kind of like understanding that went into it.
I mean, I recommended this to the group. I felt like it would be a decent starting point for the podcast. It's not necessarily popular. It's an older movie, but I feel like anyone could find something relatable in this. Even if this type of movie isn't your deal, if you don't like dramas, you don't really like family movies. And I don't know if I would call it a family-friendly movie, because there are some parts in it that, some people may not want their whole family to watch. But I think it's a very thought-provoking movie, which isn't that what we all want in media, is something sometimes to provoke our thoughts, unless it's The Office for the 50th time.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was gonna say even in something like that, you can find little things here and there.
Darth Will.
But yeah, obviously I recommend it, and I look forward to the next thing that we're gonna watch.
Yes, absolutely.
So join us next time
For Geek Squawk,
where the geeks talk.